Hello, Lawrence and beyond. This is live at KJHK. Every Thursday night at 7, we'll be bringing a live band to you. Right now, we have Making Movies in the studio with us. I'm DJ Boston, your host. With me is special co-host, DJ Sweetlou. What's up, Sweetlou?
What's going on, everybody? And we're here with the band that you all just heard playing live. Personally, I thought it was a CD. I didn't even realize you guys was playing this CD live. So,
thank you.
Adrian's first time on live at KJHK.
So if you guys want to introduce yourselves, feel free.
My name is Enrique. I play the guitar and sing in Making Movies.
My name's Diego. I play bass and I sing as well.
Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Andres. I play the drums.
My name is Juan Carlos. I play percussion and keyboard.
All right. I have a question for you guys. Where does all this inspiration come from? Tell us about what type of band you guys are.
I think we're a family band in a lot of ways. Diego and I are brothers, and Juan Carlos and Andres are brothers, and both of our dads grew up, both named Enrique, actually, funny.
Yeah.
Andres and Juan Carlos' father and our father grew up in turning us on to all kinds of music, and but they both loved rock and roll as Latin American people. So we heard rock and roll at the same time as we heard and danced to cumbias, merengues, salsa, and all that, all mixed up together since we were little. So this band feels like kind of an extension of just like a family jam session.
Awesome. Yeah, because Making Movies, isn't that a reference to, is that Dire Straits?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Our dad had a bunch of, he has almost all of their albums. And so we grew up with all those vinyls, including Making Movies is one of their albums called, Enrique we always loved seeing that on the vinyl. Enrique one day came to me, he's like, what if the band name was Making Movies? Like, yeah, let's do it.
That's a great name.
Thank you.
I really like it. So your latest album, I believe, correct me if I totally butcher this, A La Deriva?
Yeah. That's
okay,
good.
Awesome. So I'm under the impression that there's a sort of story that goes along with it. Is it telling a story? And if it is, what is that story?
It loosely is. It's based around the idea of like an immigrant family kind of falling apart, like the dissatisfaction of coming to the U.S. with like thinking that solves all your problems, but then realizing that's not always that's not always the case. We made a series of music videos that kind of help like inform the story. Like one of the songs, the first song we played, Lo Que Quiero, is about kind of like problems between a husband and wife, kind of domestic abuse type stuff, and the video series kind of starts with that part of that component of the story and goes through it. So it's definitely meant to be thematic and kind of be a bit of a window into kind of an immigrant neighborhood, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's the inspiration for the album from a lyrical standpoint.
Yeah. Do you feel like that kind of theme of like an immigrant family falling apart, is kind of relevant to what's been going on lately, especially in political climate? I mean, were you guys predicting that when you came out with that? Do you feel like it's more relevant now than it used to be?
Well, the when we were recording it, it was just based on a lot of stories that we had interacted with personally. And Enrique and I, we live in this neighborhood in Northeast. It's called the historic Northeast of Kansas City. And in that neighborhood, it's predominantly immigrants that live there. And we interacted with students by working at a nonprofit. We also run some music education programs that allowed us to then interact with these young people and hearing their stories, which they were experiencing every day, and realizing that we as immigrants ourselves didn't experience that same life that they were living. That these same they were running into so many more obstacles and travesties versus the upbringing that Enrique and I had. We just felt like that was a story that deserved to be told. And so with this album, there was never any like, man, this is what's happening right now. It was more, these are people that we know, that we've seen. These are their lives, and their stories aren't going to be told unless we tell them, because nobody else right now is telling them. So let's do that. So that's how it started.
I did feel like that kind of rhetoric was more under the radar then, and I think at the time when we were making the album, we were thinking more like a local band in a lot of ways. Although we traveled quite a bit, it just felt like Kansas City ignored this one specific neighborhood, and Kansas City as a whole ignored the fact that there's a ton of immigrants, and it just stays so separate. I mean, you guys grew up in the West Side, and like it's like these dividing lines in Kansas City between immigrant neighborhoods, black neighborhoods, white neighborhoods, and stuff. So it felt like an opportunity to say something to our city a little bit, and to bring light to something that we believe in. And little did we know. I mean, we kind of knew that, but I guess I couldn't have really predicted that 3 years later, after that the whole U.S. is talking about that problem. You know, that it wasn't isolated to Kansas City.
Awesome. Well, that's good that you guys engage in that conversation early. I think that's really striking a lot of chords right now, especially. You mentioned your work with students and local nonprofits. That's kind of that's relevant to the event you guys are putting on.
That's right.
On Making Movies Festival. Is that right?
Yeah, we call it the Making Movies Carnaval.
Carnival.
And it's a benefit for those programs. Basically, several years ago, after we had interacted with these students before formally doing any kind of music programming, and it was really kind of touched Enrique's heart. He said, like, we have these talents that we teach. Enrique and I sometimes also take on clients privately to teach music lessons, and he said, why don't we do that here in this neighborhood where that's not happening? So it started just very kind of like a one-time deal, and it just continued to grow. We saw that there were so many kids that were excited by music, wanted to engage in music, and we had this unique opportunity to bring some coalitions together, some people that were already doing the work and kind of connecting them, and then us helping create the whole system and the curriculum and everything. So at this point, we've done 5 years of a summer camp and some after school programming too. And then the Carnival, the kids that come to the summer camp, they get to perform on a real rock and roll stage with these national acts. It's really special. It feels kind of like a homecoming or something.
I have another question, and I myself come from like a very similar, place like you guys do in New Jersey, so I completely understand like what you're talking about. But I am curious, let's get a little brief history of how this band came together, especially with the two brothers from Guadalajara, correct?
Yeah.
Three brothers in here, is that
Three
right?
brothers? We
No,
got
two and two.
Two sets of brothers.
two sets of brothers?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did this come together? 'Cause we know the family, the father, he's major influence, and who's the musical influence that put you guys together?
Well, I remember that Enrique was wanting to write songs. He was doing songs on his own after he had played in a couple of different groups and had different kinds of success, and then it kind of fell apart, and he started playing songs. And naturally, I think whenever you're an older brother, it's very natural to be like, hey, I have this idea. I need you. Come over here now. And then so that's when he called me, and we started jamming together and
Resourceful.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was actually Juan Carlos's mom. I met Juan Carlos's mom in their neighborhood. She has a folkloric dance group that they've taught for years, and that's a big inspiration for the music camp too. We met people from San Antonio that do like inner city music programs that we hadn't seen anything like that in Kansas City. And then, but Juan Carlos and Andres' mom runs a folkloric dance program for kids to teach them to keep their culture. And once I met his mom was like, you got to meet my son. He plays music, and I was like,
but not knowing.
Yeah,
like because at the time I had seen them on when MySpace was happening, and so yeah, I had messaged them through that because at the time I was playing with like a couple like local salsa bands there in Kansas City. So anyways, I liked what they were doing or trying to do, and I didn't get a response back for about a few months later, and then I had run into Enrique out and about in Kansas City, and we just kind of started talking, and he had invited me the following week to go rehearse with the band. I went to go rehearse, and here we are
6 years,
7
years now. Seven.
We're
going on 7.
7 years.
Going on 7.
I think.
Yeah, and then Andres, my brother, he's the newbie in the band. We had a previous drummer with us, and then Andres kind of, after our last drummer decided that he no longer wanted to continue with us. Luckily, my brother here, who's a drummer, he was easy to call up and ask to do the favor.
As older brothers do.
As older brothers do,
Let's
right?
call on the younger brother.
You guys are much nicer brothers than me and my brother.
Well, you don't know a lot of the stuff that we go through. But we got to be nice, man, to be able to live with each other in a van and travel all over the country. So
Yeah.
we
You guys are sharing a microphone right now. If people could see this.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, we're
that's-
sharing one, so
That's
He talks more
already
than
something
I
that
do,
I would
so.
have trouble to do with my brother.
So like how we were discussing earlier, like you said, like your family members a lot, and just kind of like your community, like where you come from, gives you a lot of influence. Like in the musical world, like where's the influence come from? Like who do you guys like to listen to?
We haven't talked about that at all. There's an artist named Ruben Blades, and he's a salsa artist in the 70s that just had massive hits.
A legend.
A legend,
Yeah.
yeah. And so his music and Hector Lavoe and like the Fania stuff, like we grew up listening to. But Ruben Blades, later on in his career, he made an album called Mundo, and he had this theory that if you put the Latin rhythms under any kind of world music, it would work. The theory based on because Latin rhythms are very Afro-based, they're direct links to West African rhythms, and his thought is, well, really these are African rhythms, and so I can play a Celtic song on top of them. Because we all come from Mesopotamia, we all started making music with tribal rhythmic things. So it's going to not only sound good, but it'll sound weirdly familiar. And I remember when I read and heard that interview, I was like, that's it. Like, because the energy of that salsa music and the energy of the Rolling Stones seemed somehow
Connected,
linked to me, or the energy of a Led Zeppelin riff and the energy of a Willie Colon trombone riff. It's like, oh, that's kind of touching the same buttons that humans have, just using slightly different mechanisms to touch those buttons. Yeah. So that really influenced the band. So my dad's like old vinyl collection of rock and roll, like Led Zeppelin, and even like some like weird progressive stuff like Yes and 10cc and Dire Straits and all this. His vinyl collection was my musical education, but Latin music was what my mom liked to listen to. So I was kind of forced to expose to both. I mean, maybe what Carlos says.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, we kind of grew up in both worlds, more of the Mexican side, just because that's my family's from Mexico, and so me and my brother grew up dancing baile folklorico since we were 3 years old. And so growing up with that music, but I fell in love with Latin music, specifically more like salsa and stuff like that when I was in my teens, because that's when I was introduced to it, and I started playing with bands, and that just kind of became what my passion for music, and so I just kind of studied that music up until I currently do. And so the blend of all those those musical influences, plus my dad was a rocker, he was a drummer, in a band in Mexico in the late 60s, early 70s called the Spiders. They were like kind of like a psychedelic rock band, and they kind of were the ones who started singing in English. They were the first band in Mexico to start singing in English.
They're not a garage band. They're like,
they were
cult following. They were on RCA Records in their time, and like their vinyls are sell for a couple $100 if you can find a 7-inch on eBay of one of those. Like it was pretty cool. His dad was a rock star in Mexico in the late 60s.
Yeah, he had. Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, it's cool.
Before the family man.
Resources to build music.
For sure.
I find all that interesting because to be honest, I would have thought that maybe like artists like Santana and like Mano Chao would have maybe kind of inspired and influenced it. But I was really like when you said Ruben Blades and Hector Lavoe, yeah, I mean those are legends and pioneers of the game, and and what you like. It's like you said, like with salsa music and like with Ruben Blades, like how he took the West African beat, and then you can really throw anything on top of it and kind of just that's what salsa is.
That's what salsa is.
It's a blend of everything.
That's right.
And I mean, I find that inspiring, and I enjoyed it. This is, for me, it's the first time I heard you guys, but it was kind of like what they said, it was like salsa. It was a blend of everything, and you guys put it together nicely.
Thank you very much. You're right about salsa music. It's not a genre. It's actually a blend of genres.
Right.
And so that also gave us a freedom. We did grow up listening to Santana, but we didn't grow up listening to a whole lot of the Manu Chao or the already blended, the modern blended stuff. It was more like I heard old salsa and I heard old rock and roll.
Right.
And so I think that's what has helped us not mimic other people's blend, is because I wasn't listening to the bands that were already. There are some bands out there that those O'Motleys of the world, or
Juanes
and whatever, that are blending rock and roll with whatever.
Right.
I didn't grow up listening to that. I grew up listening to the two as separate entities, but I heard the link, and the link is this is getting more heady, but from a musical standpoint, all those Afro rhythms revolve around a clave, and the word in Spanish actually means key. All the Santeria rhythms are these West African chant rhythms, and like the rhythm is like that, da da with the right conga pattern with that, man, you're in Africa. Like you just hear it.
Right.
But you also strum that on a guitar and you got Bo Diddley. Dun, 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 because it's those slaves all came from the same part of the world, so those rhythms seem kind of intrinsic to it. And so you hear it, you kind of start, once you like open your ears to that, you start hearing that like, oh, this is really 1 degree separation from this very different thing.
Yeah, you know, and what I find most impressive is that you guys are based out of like the Kansas City area, right? You know, I mean, it's very rare that you find like a band like this in the Midwest. You know, it's very good. You know, I mean, it's
very refreshing.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you.
You know, it's I think like a lot of the style of music is, you know, like it comes maybe from like comes up north or maybe comes out from like New York or Miami, but to have somebody who's like local doing the same thing and putting it out there that's just as good as those artists, you know. I mean, yeah, just like you said, it's refreshing, man. You know, I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're sorry to cut you off, guys, but we're coming up at the end of the hour here. But thank you guys so much for coming in. It was such
You're
a
welcome.
great,
Yeah, thanks for having us.
such a
Thanks
great
for having
show.
us.
And this won't be the last time the listeners hear you guys, because you know we host the Latin Lab on Tuesday, so you know they're gonna be hearing plenty more of you guys. So
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, man.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thanks for coming. This has been Live at KJHK. You can join us every Thursday night at 7. New band coming in, new interviews, new awesome stuff.